Welcome to The Power of One. My name is Brian Beery and I'm your host. And this is a show that will demonstrate to you that one person can make a difference and that people in our community are making a difference all the time. So my guest today is Perry Bennett. And Perry is the owner, proprietor, founder of Perry's Joint here in Pasadena. And I'm glad you wore one of your t-shirts to let everybody know.
I made it a point.
Yes, who you are.
Thank you.
So I kind of wanted to start off just to give people some background on why a sandwich shop, and how did you come up with that idea, and what were you doing before that to kind of transition you into making sandwiches?
Yeah, well, I'm gonna give you the long short version.
Okay.
My parents were in business. So originally I'm from Philadelphia, and my parents were in business. They had all sort of like cheesesteak shops, they had hot dog carts, and as a child, I used to work in these shops with them. So we, early 80s, we moved to Oakland, and my father opened an ice cream / hot dog place in Oakland, East Oakland, California. This was the early 80s. And then a year later, we moved over to San Francisco in the Fillmore district. And so I always worked with my parents. He had another place in San Francisco called the Fat Ladies. So I've always worked with them. So
it was a family business, essentially. It's kind of like, so if your dad had been a dentist, you'd be a dentist right now.
Yes, basically, yes. I grew up, my earliest memories, honestly, is sitting on the counter of my uncle's candy shop and counting candy, like penny candy. A kid would come in and have 17 cents, and I would count out 17 pieces of candy. So it's kind of, it's in my blood. It's what I've always done. So when I got old enough, I knew I always wanted to go into business for myself, so I kind of made it happen. And
so then how'd you make the transition from the Fillmore district in San Francisco to Pasadena and Altadena?
Right, how did that happen? Yeah. My wife actually is from Southern California, and she went to school in Northern California at Berkeley. So that's how we met. She actually graduated at the time and was working downtown San Francisco, and we actually met in a club. So I had a couple places I was running in, and had a place called Mr. Biggs, and I had Perry's Joint. And
but Mr. Biggs was
a very small version of Perry's Joint. It was, you only can walk in and walk out. There's no seats, no nothing. And it was in the Haight.
In Haight-Ashbury.
Exactly. So there was a lower Haight though, so Haight and Fillmore. So so I actually met my wife out at a club one night. And we hung out, and once we got married and had kids, she wanted to be closer to home. So that's how I ended up here in Altadena, Pasadena.
Yeah, well, coming back to be with her, but why on Lincoln? Why?
It's interesting. My wife's best friend, Tracy Glover, who lives here in Altadena, she was looking for a place herself. And so what happened was, at the time, Jaylene Mosley, who everyone knows from the community, built a new building. And Tracy, actually, my wife's best friend, looked at the building and thought of us. She knew what I did in the Bay Area. And she said, hey, you should think about coming down and looking at this place. And so she put me in touch with Jaylene, and kind of, Jaylene is magic. She's a big part of actually why I'm sitting here talking to you right now. So, kind of the rest is history. We hooked up, and Jaylene loved what I was doing, and I loved Jaylene, and I loved the area, and I heard of the history, and I wanted to be here. I wanted to be right there on Lincoln.
Yeah, I think it's like the perfect business for that location. It's just fantastic, and it's changed a little bit over the years, and we'll talk about that a little later. But I think that it provides. There was something missing before, and now with Perry's Joint, it has a place for people to go, to congregate, to form community, to share ideas. I can't even imagine how many meetings I've had there over the years.
Right. There's an office.
But going back to the kind of the business side, I was doing some work recently up in Altadena, and one of the questions that came up, a lot of people want to start their own business. So I think, if you don't mind, let's spend a little bit of time on running, being a proprietor, running your own business, starting a small business and what the challenges are. So first of all, what are the complexities or what are the issues with, like if someone, I'm sure people come in to you all the time and say, hey Perry, how did you start this?
Right.
So
I get that question a lot.
Yeah.
I get that question a lot.
Yeah, because there's so many dreamers.
Right. You know, the thing is, I think literally if I can start a business, and I think almost anyone can start a business. I was fortunate enough to have the background of my parents being in business and watching that. You know, the biggest part is the being able to stick to itness, the being able to stick to it and to get up every day in and day out, and to be consistent and to be there. It's tough. It's your business is always with you. It's not something that you open. If you have a job, you go to work, you punch the clock, 9 to 5, 5 o'clock, you go home. It's over, right? Business isn't like that. It's with you 24/7. Even when you're on vacation, you're still thinking about the business. So you have to have the ability to really love what you're doing. And a lot of people find it difficult as far as with capital and raising the capital to open your business. But you know, there's all sort of ways that you could take your idea, you know, shrink it down, make it smaller, and start on a smaller level until you can grow to where you want to be. And that's what I did. You know, I started simple. You know, so, you know.
Yeah, it's an evolution. And I think if people set their sights appropriately and not try to do too much, then it's achievable.
Right.
So what would you say was one of the biggest hurdles that you've overcome in the last few years?
Wow, you know, that's interesting, because this is the thing. With business, there's always hurdles.
Yeah, I would think almost every day.
Always big hurdles, all the time, and they're always coming. And you need to be ready for them. You know, I'm fortunate enough that I've been in business so long, and again, I saw my parents be in business so long and jump over so many hurdles, is that I'm actually used to the hurdles. It's no big deal. I came in Tuesday morning 2 weeks ago, and my sandwich prep table, the one that I use to make my sandwiches,
I know which one.
it was completely off. It was not only off, it was warm. Everything in there was rotten, was gone. I had to throw everything out. I couldn't open that day, basically. It was over. I not only couldn't open, I had to go out and find a new box. So I had to buy a new box. I lost the business for that day. It was just on and on and on. But stuff like that it's happening all the time. Always happens with businesses. And you know, there's a lot of hurdles to overcome, but it's just part of it. So I tell people to put your hard hat on and buckle up, you know.
Be ready for the ride.
Yes, be ready for the ride. But for me, the type of person I am, it's worth it. It's worth every minute of it. I couldn't imagine doing anything else.
Yeah, so let's focus on that for a second. What would you say are some of the highlights of being a small business owner?
You know, for me, you know, I started out, my thing was about community. You know, I was in the Fillmore district when I first opened my first business. And one of the things at the time, I opened in 1993 in San Francisco.
Were you like 12?
I know. I was actually 23 at the time, right? So I was 23, and it was a lot of drug dealing going on at the time in the business, and there weren't a lot of positive black businesses or nice black businesses. So one of the things I wanted to do was I wanted to do two things. I wanted to open up a African American business that people could come to, and that African Americans would be represented really well. So, because you have to understand, in San Francisco, it's you know, people are coming from all over the world all the time. It's very diverse.
It's cosmopolitan.
Yes, exactly. So so that was one of the things that I wanted to do, was really show an African American business in a really positive light. The second thing I wanted to do was I wanted to give the young people in the area that it was a lot of drug dealers. I wanted them to see that, look, I wasn't knocking Rob, the drug dealer, but I wanted them to see Perry, the businessman, and say, hey, you don't have to be a drug dealer, but you can do this also, and you can do okay for yourself. So I really wanted to show the people in my community that, you know what, there was another way, because I was the average guy from the block, and I just wanted to, if I can do it, you can do it. So those were the two things that I really wanted to focus on with opening my business. And I think I've been able to achieve that not only in San Francisco, but coming down here It's Altadena.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think you've been very successful on both of those topics. And one of the areas that demonstrates that is, I think, from the very beginning, I think you've hired young people or youth. Every time I go in there, you've got a couple of young people working. So that would seem to me to be a priority of yours as well, right? That giving young people a job. Have you seen them go on to open their own business or to be in the business field? Or?
Not yet, but let me tell you, I always, it's an ulterior motive when I hire the youth. It's not just a job. It's never just a job for me. Right. First, you're not going to be around me, and I'm not going to be in your ear about something, But I'm definitely taking the kids, and every time they're there, Mr. Perry's in the air about what you can do, your ideas, expanding on their ideas. Even if they say, look, I'm going to go to college and I'm going to be this, I'm going to say, well, hey, if you're going to do that, let's think about this also while you're at it. Let's think about your finances. Let's think about your credit. Let's think about how you want to approach whatever idea, and let's make it bigger. One of the things that I always try to do, especially with the youth, is try to take their ideas and to say, it could be so much larger. It could be so much bigger. So I always work with them. I always try to give them whatever I have to impart.
Well, and especially one of the interesting aspects of that is they don't know much about credit, but I'm sure you don't have wads of cash all over the floor, in the cupboards everywhere.
Right.
So you need good credit.
Great credit.
Yeah, I'm sure you have fantastic.
So I have, it's decent, but that's the thing. I wish someone would have had the conversations that I have with the children are the conversations that I wish someone would have had with me. Yeah. And the things that are really important, if you're going to go on and be successful in any aspect of your life, I really try to talk to the kids about across the board. We talk about everything. I mean, when we talk about finances and credit, we talk about finding a good partner and marriage and raising kids and being a good community member, all of it.
You talk about social issues with them too?
Oh, most definitely. Well, when they ask, I try not to, I try never to put my thoughts and philosophies on the kid. And I do that with my own children. I try to tell my kids, look, don't think like dad.
Yeah, remember your kids are going to see this.
Yeah, so. right. And I do. I try to
see this program.
Yes, that's good. I want them to come up with their own thoughts and their own philosophies, to be an individual, because that's one of the things that I pride myself on, is being an individual. Yeah. It's interesting with my son, though, as much as I push to try to get him to be an individual and not think like me, I've created someone who's an individual and kind of thinks like me, but that wasn't my goal.
But that's okay. That actually reflects well on you.
Right.
That he's like you.
Right.
And that you want them to be individuals and to think for themselves. But I think what you also share with them is ethics and morals.
Oh, most definitely.
To be responsible, to be respectful, to be hardworking. I think that's everywhere within Perry's Joint. So I think that's a great legacy that you have.
Yes, thank you.
So thinking about some of the other issues as far as running a business, there's this thing called the minimum wage, and it's changing. And
it's difficult.
How is that?
How does that
impact you?
Significantly. It impacts me on how many people I can hire, if I can. I get it. I understand why minimum wage have to go up, a living wage. The only thing is that, I can refer back to San Francisco and coming from San Francisco, because that was a big issue there. Yeah. And this was in the 90s they talked about it.
And that's one of the most expensive places to live in the country.
Yes. So, but the thing that happens is that the more people get paid, the more product is going to go up, the more everything's going to become more expensive. So it almost equals out to where, yes, I'm getting paid more money, but now the cost of goods and everything goes up, because the cost to run my business is now a lot more. My products go up, my inventory goes up. Obviously, I'm paying for my employees. It's more difficult. I can't hire as many people, which I would love to do, especially the youngsters. But so it definitely has an impact on small businesses, significantly. It does.
Do you have any ideas on how maybe it could be configured differently so that you wouldn't hire, or you'd be able to hire who you need to, and so younger maybe have not exactly an internship but a different scale?
Right. You know, with the and I always do. They do it to some extent now, to where if you are a larger business, let's say if you have over 30 or 40 employees, you should pay so much in wage. And then with the smaller businesses, we don't have to pay as much, or it don't go up as fast. So, but I don't think it should be as significant with literally the mom and pops. And we are a mom and pop. You know, I'm pop and my wife is mom.
She's right there.
You know, right, and she's right there. You know, and I have to include my wife in everything, because again, without her, you know, this doesn't work. She's not here, but she's here. You know, so. So I wish they took in consideration a little bit more of the really small guy, you know. So the larger guys, they could probably absorb it a little more, but you know, with us, not as much.
Yeah. So one of the other social issues that the community faces is, and you had a conversation about this, is gentrification. Mm-hmm. So I was wondering how you might define that term, and
Right. You know, that's interesting, because, you know, there's a lot of ways I can answer this question. But, you know, gentrification is only put on certain groups. So, for example, I was one of the first businesses that came down to, that was in the Lincoln corridor, right?
Yeah,
so
right.
I was one of the first businesses. I came from a different place. I didn't know anything about Lincoln or Altadena or Pasadena. Yeah. I brought my family here. We lived 3 blocks away. We purchased a home on Navarro. I opened a brand new shiny cafe, right? There was another family 3 blocks down that purchased, there were new townhomes, and they were the Farrs. So I don't know if and the Farrs opened the business, or they purchased a new home, and they had a family, and they actually came down from Richmond also, from the Bay Area, and they were an African-American family. So, but no one stood in front of my business and said, we don't want you here, gentrifiers. And no one said to the Farrs that, hey, why did you come by here? Because we were African American. But we can't, but the definition of a gentrifier and what we did was exactly the same as if a white person came from Silver Lake or anywhere else and came. We did the exact same thing, but we weren't considered gentrifiers. No one came to me and said, now my property value is going to go up. Thank you for opening this brand new, nice, shiny cafe. But as soon as, and this is the double standard that happens.
Well, it's a double standard, but why do you think that there is that difference, but should there be a difference?
There shouldn't be a difference.
Okay.
But there is a difference. It's just, unfortunately, it's where our society is, how our society is set up and how it's built. You know, gentrification, it happens. There's layers to it.
But let's explore that just a little bit. Okay. So I think part of the reason why you weren't perceived as being a gentrifier is, one, your prices are very reasonable. Mm-hmm. 2, you include the community, and it's very, everyone could go there, and everybody does go there. Mm-hmm. And 3, you hired a lot of local people as well. Mm-hmm. So do you think that those qualities make a difference at all when we talk about gentrification?
You know, I think so, but the reality is this: I can only open the business and be the type of businessman from my experience. So the person that I am, the experience that I've had, then I'm gonna open a certain sort of business. I don't expect for someone else that has a different experience, a white person that has a different experience, to come in and open a cafe. They're gonna open a cafe with their experience and what they know. You know, I don't, in business, whether it's me or the white cafe owner, I don't think they say, oh, we don't want certain people to come here.
Well, that's true, for sure.
But, you know, so it's...
Well,
even though it may be set up, it may seem like, oh, this is only for. Well, they opened a business from their experience and with their consciousness in mind. This is what they like. This is what they like to serve. This is what they like for their place to look like. I don't think it's not like a sign that the white only signs outside, you know. Anyone can go there. It's your perception of really how you see it. What
about price?
Price point, the reality is this. My prices are what they are because when you come to my business, you see me there every day, all day. I've been there for 13 years. You see not only myself, you see my wife, right? The reality is that if I had to hire 4, 3, or 4 more people to work there, then guess what will have to happen to my prices, right?
It'll be the same as theirs.
It'll be the same as theirs.
Yeah.
I mean, so I sacrifice a lot for a whole host of reasons to be here, to be in my community, to do it every day. So much. Where most people, if they don't have that consciousness, if they don't care, then, and I don't expect for people to have my consciousness, you know. So
well, maybe that's where the difference is the caring part.
And the consciousness.
Yeah, the consciousness.
That's the issue. If you want to find an issue, the issue is that the consciousness. A lot of people come into a community and they're not conscious of the community. You know, maybe that's not their goal.
Yeah, maybe that's a better definition of gentrification, is just someone coming in to create an opportunity to make some money and not really connect to the community or give back to the community.
Right, yeah, I like that.
But why is it so important to you to be that way? Why do you sacrifice so much?
You know, because I think I was raised and programmed to, as a child, to give back to my community, I've always seen the beauty in my community, and if you look at West Philly, it still isn't beautiful to this day. But growing up in West Philly and East Oakland, that still has a lot of work, but it's being gentrified also. And looking at the Fillmore district in San Francisco during the 80s and the 90s, which a crack epidemic hit hard, and even coming down to Lincoln initially. Even coming in 2004 and seeing and hearing about the issues that I've always seen how beautiful my community has been. I've always seen it. From West Philly to East Oakland to Fillmore to Lincoln. I've seen how everything that's positive and beautiful, while most people will see the blight or they'll see the negativity. I've always seen how beautiful it is and how beautiful it could be. So I wanted to always be a part of my community. I love my community, almost like anybody else would love their community. Like someone that lives in Arcadia loves his community, or someone that lives in Glendale loves their community, or South Pass or La Cunada. That's great, and I love them, and I love their communities for them.
Yeah.
But I love where I live. And I would never trash my community. Like I hear a lot of people that live right here trash their communities, take their resources and their time, and they go out of the community and they go to other schools, and for me, I love my community and I'm gonna give everything I can until I can't.
Yeah, and I think that unfortunately in our society, there are a lot of people who either make excuses for why they shouldn't get involved, or they don't get involved, or they don't have enough time, or they don't want to commit, or they don't want to sacrifice. For some reason, we've lost that sense of why community is so important. But when you think about going into a place like Perry's Joint and people actually talk to each other and rub up against each other, you see the value of community. So what are some of the ways that you encourage community to grow through Perry's Joint?
You know, one of the things that I try to do really is, I've come to understand at this point in my life, I'm not really a leader per se, a leader of people. I don't do that. I don't even feel comfortable with the saying. But one thing I like to do is lead by example.
Right.
I can't really take a group of people or masses and say, follow me. I can't do that. But every day I can get up and I can say, hey, this is how I'm gonna work, and this is how I'm gonna raise my family, and this is how I'm gonna treat people. And if you notice, when you come in my business, even though it's clearly an African American business, if you look on the wall and see the people working there, and but if you look at the people that come in my business, at the end of the day, for me, the core of my being is about good people.
Yeah.
I don't care what color or creed or sex or race, good people. And that's what I've been able to bring to my business more than anything else. I've been able to have people from City Hall sit down with the homies, and they're eating hot dogs and they're drinking coffee. And it don't matter. You know, there's not many places you can go into and you can have such an array of people in one place, and the energy is good because everybody's just good people.
Well, I think part of what your secret is, or what your philosophy is one, everyone is accepted. Two, because of that acceptance, there's a place for them there in your space. And three, you practice it yourself, how you treat people. So how you treat people, then they treat people the same way. Because that's what the norm is. That's what the standard is. So I wish there was some way that we could duplicate you and franchise you.
Right.
But and have more businesses like that where people just feel like whoever you are, you can come in. Because I see a wide range of our community there. Is there anything you have coming up that you want to do to the business? Anything you want to change, alter? What are your dreams?
It's interesting because I'm always thinking about, I'm a person that's never satisfied. So I'm always thinking about how I can grow the business and make the business better. And but you know, I'm always limited, one, by capital, and I'm always limited by manpower. It's the two biggest things that I'm limited by. But I've always been able to be resourceful and find a way. You know, so I just continue to push and push and push, and that's part of the journey. And part of that journey in pushing, actually, and trying to find a way has actually I grow, my spirit grows. You know, and that's really the true profit. You know, is this journey and continue to push and find a way. Again, I wouldn't trade it for anything.
Well, I'm so glad you could be with us today.
Yep.
It's fantastic.
Yep.
So thank you very much.
Thank you, man. Thanks for having me.
Yeah.
This was enjoyable.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun.
Yes.
Yeah, I wish we had more time.
Yes.
But
thank you.
yeah.
Thank you.
So just sit there, and we're going to